Hello, and welcome to this Employability World Tour webinar, focusing today on job search in Canada. My name is Floriane Lambert. I am in charge of international development within the EMLYON alumni team. This series of webinars is organized by EMLYON alumni department, Delphine Rom, here today in charge of alumni career management, and myself, Floriane Lambert, in charge of international coordination. I will be your moderator today, and Delphine will take care of all your questions along the chat box and will be moderating the second part of this webinar dedicated to a Q&A session. So thank you again for joining this webinar today. If you do not know this type of webinars, they take place every other month, and they are part of a series of webinars aiming at learning the employment specificities in various countries and meeting EMLYON alumni and recruitment experts around the world, living and working in these countries. So I would like to thank our speakers today, Valérie, Damien, Guillaume, and Amine. 3 of them are graduated from EMLYON, and they chose to live and work in Canada. They will share today their expertise and knowledge of the Canadian job market with you. Just a quick note on the technical aspects of this webinar. So please, if you can turn on your camera, it's much nicer for all of us. Please stay on mute during the speaker presentations, and you can, of course, use the chat box to ask all your questions. They will be addressed at the end of the session. This session is recorded so that it can be shared with the students and alumni who could not join us today. So now I turn to our speakers who will introduce themselves. So Valérie, the floor is yours.
I'm the
Valérie.
first one to go. Hello, everyone. And since I'm the first one to go, I will take just a second to wish you all a happy New Year, since we're still in time to do that. So happy New Year, bonne année à tous. I'm Valérie Flat, a proud PG 93 alumni and a professional with a rich background in immigration services. I have dedicated 12 years of my career serving at the Canadian Embassy in Santiago de Chile as a designated immigration officer. And this extensive experience has given me the expertise to navigate the complexities of all immigration processes along the years. Here in Canada, we use winters as a unit for measuring time. So I've been calling home Montreal for the 9 past winters, surviving cold winters here in Canada. I'm dedicated to supporting my clients in realizing their immigration project. And I hope this presentation will inspire you and give you the tools you need to live a new chapter of your life here in Canada.
Thank you very much, Valérie. Damien?
Yes, hello everyone. Really happy to be with you today. So myself, I'm Damien Loison, and I will be your guest today to share with you some insight about the Canadian employment market. Myself, I've been working at Michael Page for many years now. I spent more than 10 years in our beautiful office we have in Lyon. And for the past 5 years, I'm now working in Montreal, working for Michael Page, and I'm leading our practices for engineering, manufacturing, procurement, and supply chain for Canada. So on a daily basis, I'm in discussion with client candidates who are looking for position mainly in Quebec and in Ontario.
Thank you, Damien. Guillaume?
Thank you, Florian. Hi, good morning and good afternoon or good evening, everybody. I'm very excited to share with you my experience about Canada. So I am an engineer with more than 10 years of experience in the nuclear sector in France. And I'm currently pursuing an executive MBA at the EMLYON, and it will set to complete this year in 2024. So I am in Canada since March 2022, and I am working for Bruce Power, which is a nuclear electricity supplier in Ontario, a private company for refurbishment of reactors.
Thank you, Guillaume. And finally, Amin.
Thank you, Florian. Hello, everyone. Very happy to be with you today. My name is Amin. I graduated from the Executive MBA in 2019 after having done a bachelor in finance and auditing 15 years before. I started my career as an analyst for the Moroccan Capital Market Authority. In Morocco, it's the equivalent of IMF in French, Autorité des marchés financiers. 6 years later, I joined Wafa Gestion, which is an investment management company. I joined Wafa Gestion as a compliance manager, and a few years later, I became chief compliance officer of the company. So tomorrow will be my first anniversary of my relocation in Canada. I settled with my family in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So Halifax, for those who don't know it, it's the major city of Maritime provinces in the eastern side of Canada. I've been working for the 8 last months and still work for Hitachi System Security, a Montreal-based company owned by the Japanese company Hitachi. So I started working with them 2 months after leaving my previous employer, and I'm here today. I will be very happy to answer questions if you have any question for me later in the discussion.
Thank you very much, Amin. So the first part of our webinar is dedicated to a quick note on the alumni network. We have the pleasure today to have Valérie. Valérie is one of our ambassadors in Montreal, EMLYON alumni ambassador. So Valérie, would you like to say just a few words about the alumni community in Canada?
Yes, of course. So the alumni here, the ambassadors, sorry, here in Montreal, we have 2 ambassadors, myself and Maxime Marie. And we have since 2023 a new ambassador in Toronto. I can see her name, Aurélie Brett. And ambassadors are really super connectors between l'EMLYON and geographical areas. And we're connectors, and we make sure that all alumni here in Canada, and specifically here in Montreal, get together for a diverse range of activities, such as after-work gatherings, conferences, company visits, workshops, anything, even we did the Galette des Rois once. We try to have fun together, and we make sure that those who arrive have a point of a meeting point where we can actually gather and help them settle, help them find their ways, many ways to settle here in Canada. It says on the, I went to check on the EMLYON alumni group, it says we're 550, but geographically here in Montreal, we count on about 130 members and approximately 70 in Toronto. In our events, we usually reunite about 30 alumni, but it's quite fun. We're always, and it's always different peoples. And with the years, I tend to see that it's getting younger. People are getting younger and younger, or I'm getting older and older. I don't know. I don't know which ways around it goes. But our last event was the Worldwide Alumni Day, where we had really lots of fun. And we're happy to count on the greatest ambassadors of all, Valérie Trévin-Milon, who is our president of all alumni, and she lives here in Montreal, so she helps us also during those events. And I invite you to follow us on our LinkedIn group, EMLYON Alumni Canada, if you want to make contact with us, and we'll be happy to help you with your many questions.
And also, if you move to Canada, make sure to update your profile on the EMLYON alumni platform so that you will receive the notification and be informed of the next events organized by the ambassadors. Thank you, Valérie.
You're welcome.
So now, Valérie, it's again your turn. We are very lucky to have you today in this webinar because you are an immigration specialist. So you are now going to share with us all your tips to how to immigrate in Canada. So your turn, Valérie.
Thank you. So as I said before during my presentation, I've lived over 18 years in Santiago de Chile. Of those 18 years, I've worked 12 years at the Embassy of Canada as their designated immigration officer. And you probably wonder how I became an immigration officer after graduating from the Houston University and EMLYON in a marketing major, but that's another story. We would cover another hour. But as I always say, EMLYON gives you lots of good tools to do anything in life. So you're well established to start new chapters, whatever you do after that in your life. But at least I've been able to jump into immigration laws in Santiago. And I decided after those 12 years of working as an immigration officer to move myself and my family to Montreal in 2015. And I started my company in 2016. It's important to say that here in Canada, there are about 60 professions that are really, how do you say it, regulated, of which mine is a regulated profession, but engineers are also a regulated profession, for which you cannot just come and say, I'm going to start working in my profession in Canada. So as a regulated profession, I had to go back to school, take 2 exams, one federal, one provincial, to be able and allowed to work as a consultant in immigration. So make sure you check whether your profession is a regulated profession before you start your journey. Next slide, please. So let's start with some geography. So Canada is a wide country with 10 provinces, 3 territories, each of them with their own particularities. And Quebec is the blue corner on the east side, on the east side, yes. And it's interesting to note that while Canada has 2 official languages, English and French, certain provinces don't use both languages. So Quebec is the only, and I said only Francophone province. It's the only one who has only French as their official language. And New Brunswick is the only bilingual province. The other 8 provinces and territories are unilingual. They only use English as their official language. They have to be able to provide services in both languages, but that will be only for public matters. But in the real life, you will see that English is a must. You cannot just say, I will go and settle anywhere. With French, I'm fine, or with only English, I'm fine. It's just a question of picking the right province to make sure you can settle without having to face more problems. Quebec is also independent in selecting its immigrant. So it's nice to see that. It's important to understand that French, if you don't speak French, don't come to Quebec. They've changed their law recently and their regulations, so that if you don't speak French at a level B2 or 7 in the different language tests, you won't be allowed to finally settle in Quebec. So it's really important to highlight the specific nuances of each province before you consider immigrating or settling in Canada, just so that you won't face future problems. Next slide, please. Okay. So if you are going to gather information, make sure you go to the right site. There are when you Google and put Canada or Quebec in Google, you will see that there are lots of, but some sites are not so good, so nice. Some are real scams. So there are only 2 official sites you can go visit and find the information. The one in blue, the one in red is the federal site, CIC, and the one in blue is the Quebec site for the MIFI. Make sure you go to those 2 different sites to get specific answers on immigrating to Canada at large and immigrating or coming to Quebec for specific regulations concerning Quebec. But these are the very 2 sites I recommend you check before coming to Canada. There are lots of information. They are not super friendly. I would say the federal CIC is even worse. But it's part of the game. I always say they make it hard so that not everybody will find their way to Canada, so they don't make it easy. Let's put it that way. They don't make it easy for people to come. So if you want to travel to Canada, you cannot. It's not Europe. You cannot just come and pop in with just your passport. As a minimum requirement, if you're coming as a visitor, you will need a visa if you're from a non-visa exempt country, or an ETA if you're in a visa exempt country. So those two requirements is the minimum you will need to be allowed onto the plane. Once you get to Canada, there is another queue line where you will be facing a nice and friendly officer who will actually let you in or not let you in Canada. But jumping into a plane is not a security that you will be actually allowed to enter Canada. But you will figure that out once you come to America. You can also come as a student or a worker. There has been a big announcement yesterday which threw everything into question concerning students. They decided that for 2024, they will allow only 360,000 students, which is a decrease of about 35% compared from 2023. So one of three students will be refused for the next 2 years. It's going to be a major drawback for those of you who want to come study in Canada. Plus, they're actually not giving the post-diploma work permit to all of the students. Only a few will get it. So make sure you read the new regulation as it comes out in the next few weeks. But you need a study permit if you're going to come study for more than 6 months in Canada. For those programs less than 6 months, no worries. Then work permit, that's a tricky part. Definition of work in Canada is wide. It's either paid, you get paid for what you do, or you don't get paid for what you do, like an unpaid internship, but it is still considered as work, as an activity, or as work. So you still need a work permit. So if you're a happy citizen of one of the 37 countries, because Ukraine has been added recently, of the 37 countries who signed the agreements with Canada into the International Experience Canada program, you can get a work visa, a work permit faster than any other countries. And it's easier. So I invite you to go and check the IEC programs, see if your country is signed the agreement or not. Typically, all Europe countries have signed the agreement. India and China are not part of the program. Sorry to say that. I'm saying India and China because of the campuses of EMLYON across the world. But you have different streams into the IEC program, such as the working holiday, known among the French people, Francophone people, as the PVT. You have the young professionals and the international co-op if your school gives you the possibility to do an internship during your program of studies. So these streams provide eligible participants, again, with the chance to work and travel in Canada for a period of up to 2 years, and to promote their professional development. The age requirement is a maximum of, well, it's 1 day before your 36th birthday. As of today, the pools for France, there are about 17,000 people in the pool, candidates, and there are only 7,000 spots available. So chances of receiving an invitation are pretty low for French citizens. Spain, if we have any Spaniards among the auditors today, chances are excellent. Belgium too, chances are excellent. So, and if you have different passports, you can actually put your name different pools with different passports. So that's a good news. But take note that it can take a long time to obtain your permits. So immigration is clearly a question of timing, resilience, and determination. You don't want to do things at the last minute. Take your time to get all the paperwork done. Okay, and I always say take a prospecting trip before you come and see if you will like it or not. Winters can be strong depending on where you live, so always nice to come and say to see what if you like it or not. Next slide. I'm not sure. But no, I forgot to say next slide. So I already went through this slide actually.
Okay. So
Sorry,
next
but
one.
that's okay. That's okay. They will have it as a okay. So one last recommendation: beware of scams on the web. Some people will ask you to pay big money for help. Be careful. Only lawyers, immigration consultants like myself, and notaries of Quebec are allowed by Immigration Canada to help you against a fee, of course, for help. The others are just a scam. So again, make sure you don't just click on any site and pay ahead of. You cannot pay before they actually start doing a process for you. That's not locally admitted. So make sure when you prospect on Google, you don't click on just any links, but go and you will find who is on the CIC website. You will find exactly who can represent you or help you with your immigration processes. So don't forget to check before you sign a contract or pay. And that's it, I guess, for me.
Thank you very much, Valérie, for these very useful informations. So now we will hear Damien. Damien is going to share with us the employment situation in Canada and the main trends. Damien, your turn.
Yes, thank you, Valérie. Very useful to know how to going through the immigration process in Canada. I did it 5 years ago. So sharing, I don't know if I will inform or confirm some information today. But yes, you need to know that for many companies here in Canada, talent shortage is a norm. You just have to check about the few figures I share with you today. We have a 4.7% as an employment rate in Quebec. It's still very low in Ontario. So we are facing a global employment growth with a low employment. So what do you have to keep in mind? It's probably depending about where you are living today, but our market in Canada is very transactional. For example, the notice period we have in Canada is 2 weeks. So it's mean when a company is looking for a new position, things could be very fast. The hiring process could be very fast. At some time, some candidates have a chance to have an offer after one interview, which is probably something probably too fast, but just to show you how things are important here in Canada, how you need to be reactive, you need to be dynamic, and need to be able to take a decision very fast. So this is the first thing. We have a global pressure on the whole country and more specifically in Quebec and in Ontario. Next slide, please. As we mentioned before, Canada is a wide country. So I think it's good for you to think about where you would like to land. So Hamid will be happy to share with you his past experience on the west and the east of Canada. But today I will focus on 4 locations just to give you a few more information. First one will be, of course, the main province of Ontario with the main hub, which is the Greater Toronto area, the GTA, with 7 million of people. You need to know that this is a crazy melting pot of nationality people. 50% of all annual immigrants choose Ontario simply because the market is really hot there. So we have a strong demand. In particular about all the activity in technology, finance services, and all the diverse economy. Working in Ontario, French will not be mandatory. I know that there is probably a lot of people here who are French native. If you are looking for C-level or Canada-wide role, I think French will be an asset, but with a good level of English, Ontario will be happy to see you. Keep in mind that on the border between Ontario and Quebec, you have a small location called Ottawa, who is the capital, the national capital of Canada. You have 1.5 million of people. On the north, Gatineau for Quebec, a river, and on the south, Ottawa, with a lot of administration and public services, who could be, for some of you, a good point to land. The second one, of course, will be Quebec and the province of Quebec. So 3 times bigger than France, and a main location here in Montreal. There is several other locations in Quebec, but the main point to land is probably Montreal, with French, of course, who will be mandatory for most of the position you will look for. And keep in mind that having strong command in English will be clearly an asset for more and more position here in Montreal. Choosing Montreal, it's not only to focus about the good economy we have. We spoke a lot about the gaming industry, AI, the tech industry, aerospace and stuff like that are very strong here in Quebec. But I'm happy to share with you about the Quebecois mindset, the work-life balance that we are very proud of here in Quebec. It doesn't mean that there is no good work-life balance in other provinces, but if you are decided to come in Quebec, you will be in Canada, but you will be first in Quebec. So take your time to think about that. But clearly, Quebec should be an option for your decision. The third one, we go on the west, and with Vancouver, mainly probably a good and the main hub for Asian or people coming from Asian, as an example. Clearly, Vancouver is a very good location for tech. Real estate is globally a good industry here in Canada. As you understand, housing is under pressure. We are looking for more and more people here in Canada, so we need a building for that. And due to the location of Vancouver, you also have a few things interesting in terms of retail and consumer services. And finally, the other option you have to keep in mind could be the Alberta. I'm not sure that Valérie or Delphine will be agree for that, but it's like the Texas of Canada, meaning that it's a main location for people coming from the oil and gas or the energy industry. There is Calgary and Edmonton, who are great location. And keep in mind that the Rockies with waterfall, beautiful lake are very close to Calgary. So it's as well, not only for working, but for living. Alberta could be an option you may have to keep in mind. And finally, about the employment trends. First thing and most important thing, because no one knows where we will go for 2024, but keep in mind that the Canadian industry is really stable, really robust. And we faced, for example, we go through the COVID, and we are actually in a very good position. Of course, we are seeing a GPD construction, and the interest rate will remain probably very high for this year. But the target we have in Canada is to bring 500,000 newcomer this year. So I really hope that you will be among this number. But there is a huge need of people here in Canada. And the last point, which is not a trend, but it's just an important thing I would like to share with you today. It's as we, immigration could be a nice journey for some people, but keep in mind that everyone who is living in Canada is an immigrant or is the descendant of immigrants. So it's really nice to share with you that anyone who will arrive in Canada will be very welcome to work with some so inclusive people. We are sharing a lot about the safety and a couple of good things about Canada. But myself, I just would like to highlight that being inclusive is really helpful for people arriving in Canada. So keep in mind that if tomorrow you are becoming a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, keep this value about inclusion. I think it's a key part of the growth of Canada today.
Thank you very much, Damien, for this big picture of Canadian job market. It was very interesting. We are now going to hear Guillaume and Amine, who recently arrived in Canada. As they said in the introduction, they are both graduated from EMLYON, and they are going to share with you the cultural specificities and the tips and their experience that their job experience with you today. So, Amine?
Yes, thank you, Florian. Thank you, Florian. So first thing I want to share with you is the importance of the resume, of the CV or the resume. So what is important is it should be put in the Canadian way. So what is mean the Canadian way? It depends on if you have recently graduated or if you have years of experience. I'm not going to go into the details of what a resume can be for each type of applicant. The most important thing to know, I think, is that order matters in the Canadian CV. So begin with experience and then the education. Also, it's not required to put personal information like dates of birth of your photography. So it's not only not required, but you don't have to do that. And Damien, you can confirm that. So there is plenty of resources in the net that can help you to know more about the CV, the resume formats that you should use here in Canada. Important to know that. Secondly, what I learned from the small experience that I have here in Canada, that we neglect a lot of things that we did in the past and don't think to put them in the CV. So some of them can be very valuable in the Canadian CV or resume. So volunteering is an example. Volunteering is something that we appreciate a lot here in Canada. And if you don't have experience with volunteering, try to build some when you come here, and it will help you for your future job search. Yeah, I forget to talk about the numbers. Show employment history with emphasis on achievement and put numbers. Sometimes it's difficult to put numbers, especially when we're not in sales. Talk about how many projects you worked on, how many teams you were involved with. So put numbers in your resume. It's very important. So let's think about the resume is that you should adapt it to the job you apply for. Don't use the same resume to all and send it to all the employers or the job you target. You have to tailor your resume according to the job you apply for. So I will share my experience with the tailoring CV and landing the job thanks to this. So when I came here, I didn't really prepare for the job search. So I had my classic resume. And I sent it to employers that offered job in my field. So my field was compliance, internal control, risk management, in investment management companies or banks. So few of them gave me feedback. So I let people around me, friends especially, know that I was looking for a job. So I was talking to a friend who is a project manager at Hitachi. We talked about a job published in on their websites that I saw a few days ago. So he explained to me the reality of the job. That's why it's important to talk to people. It was not exactly what I would have thought when I saw the job description. So this friend suggests to me to put all what I did in my last experiences as project manager, some achievements, how my experience is relevant to this job. So I modified my resume depending on what was really asked from the candidates, and I sent it to the HR. 2 days later, they call me for a job interview with the VP in charge of the department who was looking to fill the position, and that's how I landed the job. I would never have gotten this job if I haven't spoke to this friend, and without having put the resume in with the Canadian way to assemble resumes. I did a lot of project management in my last job, but I never put this in the resume. So I would have continued to name myself compliance manager, internal control manager, even for a project manager role, because it's simply what I am. So I was not putting all the chances in my side. For this job that I really wanted in reality, it was relevant to change perspective and to talk about what I did in my last experiences specifically in managing projects. And I renamed my resume project manager. So that's why I talk about tailoring the resume. I don't lie about my resume, but I just changed the perspective. I did, when I was in compliance, a lot of project management. So I put these projects, put numbers, put how I collaborate with teams in the resume. So rely on your friends who are already in Canada, rely on the alumni network, create relationships with people living here in Canada through social networks, for example, and LinkedIn is great for that. Last advice is to take time to choose a job that fits your aspiration. That's right, but the Canadian experience is also important. So perhaps accepting less desirable, what I call desirable jobs, accepting less desirable jobs is also a good idea, especially for those of you who want to settle here in Canada for a long time. I don't mean by that all of you have to accept these jobs, but when you want to settle here for a long time, the Canadian experience is very, very important. And all of the employers here in Canada are looking for the Canadian experience. We come here without the Canadian experience, so we have to acquire this Canadian experience. I learned this from my small experience of 1 year here in Canada. So that's all for me. And if you have any questions, I will answer to them.
Thank you, Amin.
Welcome.
We are now going to hear Guillaume sharing his experience.
Yes, thank you. So before going in details of my day-to-day experience of Canada, I'm going to share with you my journey to come in Canada. Actually, between the decision and the moment where when I arrived in Canada, it took 5 years for me. 5 years. Why? Because first, I was not very good in English. I am. I don't know if other people can find some difficulties in English, but in the beginning, when you work in France, 10 years in nuclear sector, you don't need English, and it was very hard for me to find a job in Canada. So between this decision and the moment, it was 5 years. I've done I don't know a bit more than 10, 15 interviews with different people, and it was very, very special because you've got the language and also you've got the culture. And the culture in the interview is totally different from France, for example. Here, the interviewer wants to see what you have accomplished and also what is your potential. In France, it's a little bit different. You can say, oh, my role was a project manager, program manager, etc. But here they say, okay, what did you accomplish during during the last job. So yes, what you have to take away from that is when you want to come, it takes time. You can be very good in English. I've got a specific skill. It can take time. So yes, me, I don't live in a big city in Canada. I live in Port Elgin. It's a very small city next to Toronto, 2 hours from downtown Toronto. What is very interesting in this type of city is that it's very safe and it's very impressive for me. I come from the countryside in France. It's not the same. Here, you can let your door open, you can let your car open. There's no risk, and it's very impressive. It was very impressive for me. This thing. I know that in Toronto, Montreal, it's not the same, but you have to know that in little cities in Canada, it's very safe. It's also about nature. I live so close to the nuclear station of Bruce Power, and around this station, it's only nature, and it's if you like nature, it's one of the best place to be. You can go skiing. You can go on the ice, etc. It's a really beautiful place, very beautiful place to live. And also, one thing that it's important that the cultural integration takes time. In fact, Canadians are kind. They are very open for the first contact, but to have a deep integration in a community, it takes time, and you have to make efforts to go to this community and to participate, to be part of it. It's something that also I discovered when I arrived here. It's not you have to be part of the community. And the last item also, it's life is expensive, very expensive. Food, cars, house is very expensive. Also in a little city outside of Toronto, Montreal, Quebec, Ottawa, it's very expensive. So you have to keep in mind also that, okay, there is a salary, but also there is a cost of life, which is not totally not the same as in France, for example. So keep that in mind. And you said, Damien, that there was in Quebec a good balance between private and professional life. I cannot say in Ontario it's the same, but where I work, it's the same. People know that to be good in your profession, in your position, you have to have a good balance with your private life. If you don't have a good private life, your professional work won't be 100%. So people know that also here, and it's a very strong item. So when you want to look a job here, in fact, it's better to have a good level of English. But I have also proof that if you have a specific skill, you can go in Ontario and they bet on you, and they will and you will have to develop your English in situ. Other thing, when you do an interview with a recruiter in Canada, time is money. So, for example, when I've started to do some interview for Canada, I started to explain lots of things, and the interviewer says, "Stop. Let's go back to the question, and let's go after to the next question." It was very focused, very processes, and keep that in mind. Don't go directly to the point. And I already explained the mindset about what you have accomplished, and what is important is not what was your role. And it's important also to understand that in Canada, they don't know French business school, engineering school. They don't know. They say, okay, what have you done? And in fact, Canadians are kind, and they accept your accent. They accept your accent. When you make mistake in English, it's okay, because everybody comes from somewhere. And in fact, it's only immigration. So if they don't understand, say, okay, and they try to explain, and we can work like that. So don't be afraid of that.
Thank you very much, Guillaume. Thank you. Now we are going to finish this webinar before opening the Q&A session with the do's and don'ts from each of our speakers. So Guillaume, can you share with us,
Yes.
sorry, your do's and don'ts?
So very quickly,
Yeah.
it's never give up, because it takes time to come. It can be hard with your English, etc., with your skill. But if you want to come, never give up, and because there is place for people here. For example, Bruce Power create a new nuclear plant, so they need new people, etc. In Canada, it's like that. So never give up. And in fact, don't be unprepared when you go to interview. It's important to know what you want to give to the interviewer.
Thank you. Amin?
Yes, so for me, the thing to do is to prepare well before you come. Really, prepare the CV, learn about culture, learn about companies here in Canada, prepare a lot. I did this mistake to not prepare. Before coming, I struggled during a month or two, but I could prepare before I come. It would be a better experience. So prepare well. Don't underestimate English. Even in Quebec, we tend to say in Quebec, you don't have to have to be comfortable with English. I think, from my experience, it's not true. From my experience, my company is based in Montreal, even if I am in the eastern side of Canada. It wouldn't be possible to land my job without having a minimum of English, or without having an interview in English and to be comfortable in English. So never underestimate the English. If you think you don't have a good level, work on that before to come in here in Canada.
Thanks, Amin. Damien?
Yes, in addition to Guillaume and Amin insight, just in terms of attitude, again, we spoke together about that before, but inclusivity, being tolerant, and sorry for the joke, but be positive. You know, there is some BS here in Canada, and sometimes someone coming from France, we could think, we have someone who will complain and stuff like that. So yes, keep in mind that as an immigrant, as a newcomer, you have to be strong in your attitude. And even if anywhere you will decide to land in Canada, yes, think about the networking. Guillaume shared about the needs that you have to connect with people, not staying with only your own community, but spending time outside and sharing with people. I think it's a good way to improve your integration, and the good way of working and living here in Canada.
Thank you, Damien. And finally, Valérie?
Yes, so don't hesitate, as I said before, don't hesitate to take a prospecting trip. And I would say February 15th would be a perfect date. Come and challenge wintertime. Come and see if you can actually survive winter, because I have known many families who came in Canada in the summer, and after one winter, they decided Canada was not for them. So come in winter, face winter, and then decide if you want to live here and establish here. Beware of, and beware of internet scams. Don't fall into the wrong hands. And remember, you are an immigrant. It's now, if you come to Canada, you are an immigrant yourself. So don't come with I'm French, or I'm whatever European, and I know better than you. No. You have to be able to actually change your thinking, your mind thinking. You have to, but to be able to actually integrate their culture, their society.
Thank you, Valérie. We are now going to open the Q&A sessions. So Delphine is going to take your questions and address them to our speakers.
Mm-hmm.
I think we already have a few questions in the chat box. Feel free to ask more.
So you're very welcome to ask your question, and Of course, I will give you the occasion to ask them directly. However, we have a few questions. The first question was from Elizabeth, Elizabeth Figneux. I don't know if you want to ask your question directly to Valérie.
So thank you very much all for your presentations. So I am currently in Montreal. I own a work holiday visa. And I wanted to know if there are some networking events here or professional gatherings where I can like maybe talk to people and maybe like find some professional opportunities in Montreal.
Okay, so I know there's someone who I think it's once a month they do like an alumni all business school, engineering school from France. They all gather and do a dinner where you actually change a table every plate. So you have the chance to meet three different tables and people from all horizons. And it's a good way to actually meet with CEOs and high-ranked people and let them know you're here and you're looking for a job. Otherwise, there is also the French Chamber of Commerce, who they have a site on their site. I believe they post jobs. So if you want to go check the French Chamber of Commerce and see if you find jobs that might be of interest. Anyone can add something about that? I don't know if Damien...
Yeah, depending about your background, there is a lot of opportunity to network, but you have to, again, it's very specific about your specific job search. But feel free to connect with me directly on LinkedIn, and we will be able maybe to try to find something more specific about your current situation.
Okay, and Elizabeth, you can always post your CV on our EMLYON Alumni Canada LinkedIn group. Just post your CV and put a little explanation of what you're looking at, because because this way people are going to match with your interests.
Okay, I will post it again then. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We've got also a question which was much more concerning Guillaume, or I mean, did you get the job before moving or after moving? Mostly for Guillaume, because I mean, you did get it before, after arriving. But maybe Guillaume, did you get a job before arriving?
Yes. So, because in fact, for me, a simple issue, it's the salary. I cannot live without salary. So to change, to move from France to Canada, I had to find a job. So yes, I do my search when I was in France. I found my current employer, Bruce Power, when I was in France. And I was sponsored by Bruce Power during the visa process, and it was a lawyer who took the time to do the process for the visa. I've got a work permit. I don't have the permanent residency, and yes, so it's something that I think that you can do, because I've done it. Do the search when you are in France. Find a job. There is one thing. I think it's important to have a special skills when you do things like that, because for me, for example, it took when the moment they said, okay, let's go, and the moment when I arrived in March 2022, it took 4 months. So it takes time, also the time for the visa.
Valérie, I think you've got a few things to add to the process when you get the job before arriving.
Valérie, we can't hear you.
Okay, so Valérie did get
Sorry, I put I closed down my microphone because I was answering questions on the chat, so I didn't actually really listen to what.
So Guillaume arrived first, and I think what you posted on the chat was mostly the answers to the questions. So Guillaume did find a job before arriving. So you said if you come from a visa exempt country, so
it's easier to
have it at the
and
airport.
jump on the plane. Yes, because if you wait for the work permit from outside, it can take up to 5 or 6 months. Whereas if you just get the ATA, but make sure you get the job offer validated by the employer or the LMIA CAQ. If you're coming to Quebec, you need a CAQ on top of the LMIA. But make sure you get one or the other before you jump on the plane, because you will need the proof that the employer did their part. The employer has to do some paperwork before you can get your work permit. And it's not a work visa, it's a work permit. The visa is only the little stamp or paper stamp in your passport that allows you to take the plane. If you're from an exempt visa exempt country, you don't need a visa. You just need the ETA, and then you will get the work permit.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Just one question on top. I'm sorry, it's Benoit speaking. I'm the one who asked the question on the Canadian company. Then, if you get the ETA, it means that you can go to Canada. But are you allowed to work in Canada?
No. With an ETA, you're just allowed to come in as a visitor.
Yeah, but it means that if I have like a job offer from a company, they still have to wait for me.
It's not just a job offer, Benoit. It's not just a job offer. A job offer is just something between you and the company. The company, they have to do a paperwork. Paperwork means they have to go to a particular portal. They have to validate a job offer within it's a portal from the federal government. They have to validate the job offer. They have to pay for it. It's not just something between you and the employer. They have to do their own paperwork.
Okay, now it's key because in terms of when we are in France, it's key to be attractive as possible. And if the market is super tight, I guess a company cannot wait for 5 months for us to be allowed to work in Canada.
Oh,
so
yes,
there's no way to start.
They have to. There is no way around. There is no way around. You have to get the paperwork done before you come to Canada. And even if it takes 8 months, you cannot come before you get that paperwork done.
And it takes usually 5 months.
Yes. Or you jump in the plane with the ETA and get your work permit at the airport, but the paperwork on the side of the employer needs to be done before you jump on the plane.
Okay, but it means that at the airport, it's I mean, it's something that people do because it's the first time I've heard such a thing. So it's enough, and then it's
enough if you have the right documents from the employer. It's not just a work contract. As I said, you don't travel with a work contract.
Yeah,
you need a LMIA or you need a job validated offer.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I have a few questions from the Diane Zarka. I don't know if you want to ask directly your question, Diane, if you're still here.
Sure, thanks a lot for the webinar. I was wondering, after you have submitted your work holiday visa application and you join the pool, how long does it take generally to hear back, especially when you're a French citizen? You mentioned earlier that it was a bit scarce in terms of validation. So I was wondering this part on the first hand and second hand, if there was any way to speed up the process. Thank you.
Okay, Diane, did you get an invitation or just in the pool?
I'm just in the pool at the moment.
Okay, so you're in the pool. As I said before, chances to get an invitations are very low at that time. You're about 17,000 people for 7,000 spots available. Chances are you're not going to get an invitation for this year. So you might want to look for an employer who will validate a job offer so you can go onto the young professional pool. That would be your best chance. If you don't get invited by February 15th, go for an offer and go onto the young professional pool.
Got it. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Victor, maybe you want to ask a question directly. It's mostly about French citizens working in Canada.
Sure, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for the presentation, everyone. My question is regarding this fact that we just covered. So 17,000 applications for 7,000 spots, which is not a lot for French citizens, obviously. So my question was, in one hand, we have a pénurie de main-d'œuvre and a lot of spots available for work in Canada and especially in Quebec, but at the same time, it's very limiting when it comes to immigration because of very few spots in the end with a lot of applications. So basically, my question is, how can we counter this saturation of applications for French citizens? What should we do in order to get a chance to get in, basically?
IEC, okay, Victor. IEC programs are not the only options. This option is are only available for those who are under 36 years of age. For those who are over 36 years of age, there are other options. So you can also use those options to come to Canada. And the main basic option is get an LMIA. It's a labor market opinion that the employer has to go through, and it takes about 2 months for the employer to get approved on their labor market opinion. And the LMIA is the paperwork on the side of the employer. So that's why I said you cannot just go to the airport and ask for a work permit. The employers, they have to do their side of the job too. And that would be one good way to go around the PVT or the young professional. But the young professional is a good way too for you. If you find an employer, just go for young professional. Young professional, it has a cost of $230 for the employer. It takes an hour to validate the job offer online. And once you have your job offer validated by the employer, you get the ETA, you jump on, if you go through the young professional IEC program, you just go to the regular 6 weeks wait, I guess, for the work permit. It used to be 6 weeks. I don't know how it's going to be this year, but once you get your young professional invitation under the IEC programs, it's only 6 weeks. And you're sure to get an invitation on the next draw. So once you get it's just a question of finding an employer, get them validate your job offer under the young professionals, and then you get an invitation on the next draw. There are plenty of or spots, whatever you call it, under the young professional pool.
Got it. So taking this option would be way quicker than any other options to get in.
It would be quicker as long as you find an employer, which would be the tricky part.
Got it. Maybe an additional small question related to the first one. I've heard that the government of Justin Trudeau talked about a specific plan, especially for managers and workers that are working in companies as managers, to maybe have a plan to get the application to be a bit quicker so that managers can come to Canada. So have you heard about this
not specifically. They've talked about many things, and we haven't seen any regulations coming out as of yet. So maybe down the January or February, maybe we'll find out more about those options. But for now, there is nothing. But then again, if you come as a manager, it means you have a job waiting for you. So and I would say the young professional is the quickest way.
Very clear. Thank you very much.
If you find a job, it's the quickest way for French, under 36.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay, well, because we've been speaking about the 36 question, we've got a question from Nico. So Nicolas, I don't know if Nicolas, you want to ask your question directly. If not, I'm gonna do it for you. There's a question about employability after 50 years old as an industrial senior roles. Do you think we can find something after 50? And
oh yes, 50 is still young. Still young in Canada. It's not France. I have clients who come at 60 and they still find jobs. So no, 50 is it's not even an issue. Plus, they don't ask you your age, and you know on your CV you should not put any information that will let the employer know your gender, your age, your address, anything that that's personal. Don't put it on your CV. So don't put your age. That's it. You don't have to put your date of birth. Just put a young, nice picture of you. Not so young, but I would say just make sure you take a nice picture of yourself that shows that you're young at heart. And it's not because you're 50, you're not active. So of course there is a employability for people over 50.
Okay.
You can bet on that.
Thank you, Valérie. Any other advice, maybe Damien, about the market and the job market for the more aged people?
Of course, it's a very frustration situation for a lot of candidates who have a strong experience exactly matching what my clients are looking for. But there is a bridge. There is an ocean, but there is a bridge in terms of paper. So yes, I know it's never easy, and myself, Valérie, will be the expert. But yes, keep in mind that there is space for young people, but more experienced people, of course, have really a good chance to perform and to grow. And yeah, it's please keep in mind. But honestly, in my situation, some clients are expecting. I will give you one confidential information. I'm working with a big group who is looking for a specific expertise in transportation. My client explained to us that in Canada, no chance to find C-level or strong people in this area. So they ask us to work with our UK subsidiary to find people open for relocation, and they will wait and they will pay to bring someone from UK working at some point in Ontario to lead a business unit. So this is the kind of thing with a current situation, a hard situation for some company. But at the end, this is a decision of the company. For the immigration process, again, as a headhunter, I just be able to help you as soon as you have authorization to work in Canada.
Okay. Thank you, Damien. Thank you, Valérie. Anaïs, maybe you want to put your question and put your mic on, just because you have several questions, maybe 2 or 3. So let's go.
I have so many questions, but most of them have already been answered. So thank you very much. I am looking for an internship in Toronto, and I would like to know if it's an advantage to look an internship in Toronto if I want to ultimately work in the US, for instance, because of the English speaking region. Is it better than Montreal?
I didn't quite get the thing about the US and Toronto. What was the link?
It's because I want to ultimately work in the US, and so
okay.
But I want to have an experience in Canada.
In Canada for the okay, Montreal. As I live on the plateau, I never ever speak English in my daily routines. I only speak English if my client is Anglo, but other than that, I never get to speak English. So if you want, unless your job is in English, I would say make sure that you're gonna have to work on a daily basis in English, because you might get frustrated if you're on the job, everybody speaks French and you don't get to put into practice your English. But other than that, the co-op international process means that you have an internship convention signed by both your school and the employer, and that the employer also validates a job offer on the portal before you can apply for the stage co-op process or put your name into the pool of the stage co-op. But of course, you will get an invitation right away. They give you're the first ones to get invitations.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's a good option.
There's another question that we didn't address yet. It's what about starting a business in Canada? It's from Alexandre, so I don't know if you want to say more, Alexandre, about your question. No? Okay. So do you have any idea about any help creating a business in Canada? I know it's easy in USA, but how is it in Canada? Can we make it very easy and fast?
It can be pretty easy and fast, but it's a long process in terms of immigration. Buying a business and putting money on the table is always easy and fast in America, North America, but coming as a business immigrant is not as easy and fast. So it all depends on what kind of, and there is I didn't put that, maybe Alexandre can send me a quick email and I will send him a link. There is an organization here that puts into contact people from the exterior who wants to buy a business in Canada, especially in Quebec. So there is an organization here in Quebec that puts them into relation and help them signing up and doing business together. But if you want to start a business in Canada, there are several options, but it's not that quick and fast, and it can be quite expensive.
Okay.
But I cannot answer over this type of conversation because it would take too long.
Okay, thank you. There is another question from Remy. Maybe you want to ask it, but I can do it for you. Does it exist some website to find a job for people older than 36? Is there something special for senior, for the senior market or senior offers? And it was mostly for people working in Alberta. So is there something special for C-level or?
I did at the end of the presentation, I put a lot of links you can refer to if you are looking for a job. For Alberta, I'm not familiar with our particular sites for Alberta. Alberta would be, I'm sure that when you say for C, what was it about C? But I don't know. I don't know what was I don't know. But anyways, find jobs. You can refer to all those sites. Those for Quebec are really only for Quebec. But I would say Move Jobs Canada for you, Expresso Job, Destination Canada, Indeed, and LinkedIn, of course, are your best friends to look for jobs.
Yes, hello. I am Jeanne-Marie Remy. The question was for me. Yes, it was more to understand also how does that work, because you explained with this IEC program for young professional and this PVT also, but when you're just 36 or under between 36 and 40 years old, you speak French, English, and you want to go to work in this country, the only option is to find an employer, and then it's job to send this LMIA or
LMIA or EMT in French. EMT, if you Google EMT, LMIA, and you will the employer has to sponsor you and complete the LMIA process before you can actually travel and get your work permit at the airport. Okay, so that's a 2 months process.
Okay, thank you. That's a good idea.
Okay, and you don't need a CIQ unless you're coming to Quebec. It's only the LMIA part. If you're going to travel to work outside of Quebec, you need the LMIA plus the CIQ if you're coming to Quebec.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Maybe another question from Batuli, if you want to ask it directly.
Yeah. So, hi everyone. Thank you for the presentation. When I was looking for a job in Montreal, I have the feeling that there's more IT jobs. Even when I registered to the Journée Québec, Porte Ouverte Québec, I forget. There was more IT positions. So, do we have a business consulting firm in Montreal, like in Paris? Because I don't have the feeling that there is a lot of position for consultants.
IT position, I would say it's kind of a down market these days. Okay. Lots of people getting fired in the IT business this month. Probably things will pick up again. It's just a question of time. For consulting firm in Montreal, there are a lot. It's just a question of making sure they have enough business to recruit at that time. But I don't know what specifically you're looking at, but if you look in LinkedIn, I'm sure you'll find.
Okay, I look the position that were open in the Big Four, like Deloitte and EY, and I didn't find a lot of open position. So it was concerning for me because I'm working currently in a consulting firm that is specialized in operation strategy and management and transformation. So I wanted to have the same thing in Montreal, but
Okay. Do they have an office in Canada, that company?
no, not yet.
No? Okay. Okay. Because if you work for a CGI or whatever, those big firms that have an office in Montreal, it's easy to transfer. There is a special way to transfer workers from outside of Canada to their offices in Canada. So it's always a good start to think about, let's see if my company has an office abroad and see if I can transfer, because transferring is always easier than just getting any other type of work permits.
Okay.
So it's always a good option.
Damien, did you want to add something?
Thank you.
Maybe to map the market, I think at some point, the key company you have in mind in France, market in Canada or in Montreal is probably different. So yes, focus on maybe the company you already know, but think about maybe some smaller company or more dedicated company here in Montreal. Yes, I'm agree with Valerie. IT is a bit tough for the moment, but I'm pretty confident that the market will turn in a few months, and there is for sure a lot of things to do for you. But map correctly the market outside the key actor that you have in mind coming from France.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We have now a question about okay, I want to travel. What is the first step? And I'm just completing the question because I know that Guillaume and Amine, you've got such a different experience, because Amine, you arrived before finding a job. So
Absolutely.
maybe you could tell us more about your experience, because we have been speaking about getting the work permit, getting everything, and you did it the other way. So maybe you can tell us more about that.
Yeah, so the way I got the chance to come here is the express entry. It was a simple way to come here. I have to check all the requirements asked by the government to have the visa in this express entry program. So apart from it was a long journey to get the visa, it took, especially with COVID time, it was like 1.5 years or 2 years to get the visa. But it was just to pass some exams, medical exams, French language test, English language tests, diplomas, things like that. It was a huge amount of documents I had to prepare. I was in the pool for a few weeks, and I get an invitation from Nova Scotia. I didn't have all the points required to choose my province, so I accept the invitation. They gave me 600 points, I think, at the time. So I get an invitation the next week to apply for the express entry. So yeah, I didn't have to get any work permit. I landed a job when I was here. So I resignated from my last position in December 2023. I came here 1 month later. I worked for my company remotely from here for February and March. And I was looking from here to have a job. I landed a job in May 2023. So yeah, it was just a question of time. It was not very complicated to come here with the express entry.
Thank you. I mean,
Okay,
it was important to have your experience. Valerie, yes.
Just to clarify, there are two processes: the temporary permit, which is the study permit or the work permit, and the permanent residency, which gives you, as I mean, the permanent residency status. You come as a permanent resident.
Exactly.
So it takes, these days, it takes about 6 months under the express entry. You need at least a level 7 in English across the spectrum of all tests, written and spoken tests. 7 at least as a minimum requirement, and 1 year, 12 months continuing work experience in the same profession before you can get an invitation. Invitations, I believe these days are around 520 points or something like that. Around 500 points. If you don't get those 500 points, you won't get an invitation. But it's a completely different way to come to Canada, because you come as a permanent resident, so you don't have to actually look for an employer or anything. You just walk in Canada as a permanent resident and to settle and do your life as you want.
Exactly.
But it's a different way of coming to Canada, but it takes time. It takes time too. And it takes money. It's expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive.
I would say $2,500 between medicals, the permanent residency, the English test, the WES. WES also is expensive.
The WES
you have to
also,
have
yes.
an evaluation of all your diplomas. So I guess between 2,500 and 3,000.
Minimum 2,000, absolutely.
At least.
At least, yeah.
Okay.
It's a different way to do things.
Thank you, Valérie. You've been answering, Valérie, in the chat to most of the questions. So maybe we can give like 2 or 3 minutes for the last question. So because we're coming to the end of the webinar. There was a question about English proficiency tests. So do they still are mandatory?
Which test?
English proficiency.
English proficiency for permanent residency status, you need it's a requirement, especially if you go under express entry. For Quebec permanent residency, there are some. If you have a baccalaureate from France, the secondary diploma from Belgium or Switzerland, you're exempted from the French test. But in any for any other cases, you have to take the test.
Mm-hmm.
But for jobs requirement, it depends on some employers will ask you to take a test, and others will just evaluate your English knowledge over the interview period of time.
I was asking this question in the chat, and I was wondering if there was some exception if you worked for example, in the UK for several years. So do you still have to prove your English level?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Imagine French people have to demonstrate they speak French. It's not because you have a French passport, you're actually a French, well, you know how to speak French.
Okay, understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
People get their passport because they get married to a French citizen or by birth because their parents or whatever, but they don't specifically lived in France during their life, and they don't speak French. So it's not a question of where you've been or where was your passport issued. It's just a question of demonstrating you actually speak or write French. And even now in Quebec, they make it even harder. They want people to demonstrate they can write French. Whereas it was until 2023, it was only oral French. Now, as 2024, you have to demonstrate you can actually write it correctly.
Thank you. Thank you, Valérie. Florian, I think we are going to the end of the webinar. Maybe there is a last question if someone wants to open his mic. Otherwise, I think we are going maybe through the last slides just to show you.
I just wanted to say, if you have any questions, I'll do lives on my Facebook, VF Immigration, every Tuesday at 4:30, so 10:30 p.m. for you in France. It's a 1 hour live on Facebook where I answer all type of questions. And it's English, French, Spanish. I answer any.
Sorry,
and it's about 100 questions in an hour.
Sorry, I just have one more question if we still have time. Is it okay?
Yes, okay, Benoit.
Yeah, I just had a question on the company's internal mobility process, because Valérie said it was easier. this is actually my situation today. I'm working for L'Oréal, and I'm interviewing, within my company and managers. I met usually in Canada, they're super worried about the timing. They're like, okay, we can get you, but then we don't want to wait for 5 months because again, they need like someone it's in a matter of a few weeks. So how easier is the mobility process when it's an internal move?
Have you been working for L'Oréal for 1 year?
Yes, at least.
It's
yeah.
funny because L'Oréal, they have a good immigration lawyer working for them. So I'm worried they don't know about that process. There is a quick process where you can actually jump in the plane tomorrow if you wanted.
All right. Okay. No, they were not aware. Okay.
Yes, they should know about it. They should know about it. There is a transfer visa for you.
Okay, nice. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And we have the last question. So the session has been recorded and will be posted on our website, the slides as well. So you will find all the information, the contact and the name of Valérie, Damien, Amine, Guillaume. So you will have all the information and you can find it on the website, on the alumni website, which is open to students and alumni as well. So I think we've been going through all the questions and it's time maybe to just say goodbye. What time is it in Canada? It's the meal time.
1:30. It's lunchtime.
It's lunchtime, so we will wish you a good lunch and we will have a good dinner in France. Yes, Florian, you are going through the website. So on our website, you will find some link like Workmaze. You will find recruitment guidelines, and Going Global helps you to prepare your expat. I don't know if we've got the other information, but I've posted some information in the chat as well. Our next webinars, the next one will be USA on March 5th, on the 5th of March, I don't know, English or American way. And the two next ones will be Emirates and Scandinavia. So you are very welcome to come to the next ones. And a warm thank you to Valérie, Damien, Amine, and Guillaume. It has been very helpful. And hopefully everyone could find more information to go through a long process or a short process, depending on the money as well. So thank you all.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your attention and a warm thank to our speakers today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.